Data science has been becoming a growing profession and is also the heart of many organizations. That's why Data Science Portugal was born, the first community created by data scientists for data scientists. DSPT wants to gather anyone who works in the field and chat about any topic over this great subject. All members from our team are committed to make sure that the data science field evolves in a healthier and stronger way. To ensure that the focus is on sharing knowledge, we guarantee that our stage is not a place that supports any commercial or recruitment content, and our kind speakers are committed to share their experience for free. We want you. Let's do bigger things together. Join us at any event all around Portugal or online.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our 97th meetup event from DSPT, Data Science Portugal. And even though we are nearing our 100th event, this one is actually special. This is the very first in-presence event that we are having after COVID here in Portugal, and the second overall. So thank you for joining us in this special event in such a moment where we finally gather, not on a YouTube event, not on Teams, not on whatever platform you are using for online meetings. Now we are in presence. We have peers and we can have networking and knowledge sharing event. And this is our agenda. What do we have in store for you today? We have a very special talk today with a person who is one of the few, if not the only one, at least to my knowledge, who is doing data journalism here in Portugal. And he's bringing you his very own personal experience and some insights on what it's like to work as a data journalist here in Portugal. Then we will have our group photo. And I remind you, group photo is very important that we acknowledge that this event actually happened. And then we will have our beer break, the very, very special first beer break here in Portugal after COVID. After that, after 30 minutes of beer break, we have more beer break, but with focused networking and some special work that we have assigned for you. Very light, but very network-based, and we hope you enjoy this experience. After this, as very well said David in the beginning, we will have more networking. Now, in the dinner, sitting on the table, enjoying a good meal, and speaking, talking, enjoying our companies, and more knowledge sharing. This is pretty much what we have today for you. And who are we, in case this is the first time you are coming here to see us? We are an informal community who tries to spread the gospel of data science and everything associated with it. We are pro bono, we are not here for money, we are here for knowledge sharing and to make sure that each one of you has an opportunity to network, to connect with like-minded people. And we have very own specific philosophy. We have that knowledge sharing, we have that network enhancing experiences. We also acknowledge that this has to be without any type of barrier to entry. We believe in open-mindedness, and we also believe in no bullshit. We are not here specifically on this stage for hiring events or whatever. We are here to challenge yourselves, to share knowledge, to make sure that tomorrow when you get to your company, your research work, and remember what you learned yesterday, what we experienced from other people, and make sure that that becomes valuable for you in the future. Now, one thing that I invite you to think about, if you feel that this could be the place where you could share something that you have inside you in your work, in whatever you are doing right now as a data scientist, as a data, whatever focused objective that you have, feel free to contact us and to share what you have in store, and maybe next meetup with you who are here sharing your knowledge. Now, we are in 5 cities. We are kicking off here in Porto. We have kicked off last month in Aveiro, and we hope that we can kick off again the remaining cities. So if you are a traveler, if you are in some of these cities, just make sure on Meetup if we are doing a promotion there, an event there, and join us. Because what we are doing here today, we are doing on the other 4 cities. Now, we have our own website where you can check for job opportunities, for more events like this one, related or non-related with Data Science Portugal, but data-based events. Join us on our social networks, Twitter, Facebook, Meetup, LinkedIn, Slack, where we also have a very active with hundreds of people already joining this community. And of course, thank you to Critical Techless for allowing us to come back to in-presence events. And now on to the very big thing that we have in store for you as a first part. Rui Barros is a data journalist. He started his career around 6 years ago, first at Renascença, and now he's in Público. And what he tries to do, he will tell you in a moment. So, without further ado, Rui, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your warm introduction. So, I don't need to present myself because he already did. So, my name is Rui. I'm a data journalist. I always say that I'm an art lover turned into a web developer. But basically, I'm the guy. If you ask around on the newsroom, I'm the guy that makes interactive stuff and things with data. So you are probably here to get the answer for this question: what is data journalism? And I could simply say that data journalism is journalism made with data, but you will probably say, yeah, sure, I know that, but that doesn't add a lot. So I thought about giving you a lesson about the history of data journalism. I'll try to make it short, but basically, data journalism, the concept of data journalism can be traced back to this book, called Precision Journalism. That basically, the main idea is that this author is said basically, look, so we journalists and scientists both are very concerned with one thing. It's the truth. So we are searching always for the truth. What he proposed on this book is, so these guys on the science side of the world, they have a method. So maybe we should learn a few things from them. If we are both trying to get into the truth, we might try to apply a little bit of the scientific method into journalism. So that's his biggest, or it is this book summed up. Obviously, journalists have been playing with data science and data and computers for a long time. The first time that, at least that we know, the first time that happened was at the CBS, when basically they tried to predict the outcome for that election. But yeah, it was with one of those very big computers, and they didn't run the analysis on the television because they were skeptical about it, and journalists are always skeptical about the word, so they didn't. But actually, the computer was right. So that was the first lesson that journalists learned. So we might need to start to trust this thing. But obviously, and that was the first step into what was called computer assisting reporting, which now sounds kind of weird because we use computers all the time, but back then it was really a thing. So it was, let's use computers to make journalism. Of course, it wasn't something that got very spread out into newsrooms, basically because like there was a lot of things stopping them from trying these things. The first thing is like obviously, yeah, computing power was expensive, and you needed like big rooms with big computers, and that was something that newsrooms don't always have money, so it was a thing. So the other thing is that no one at the newsroom really knew how to use it, so you had to trust someone that knew how to use that weird machine there, and we, as I said, journalists are very skeptical, so we needed to trust someone that was doing weird things on the computer. So people were not really into computers back then. And there was not a lot of data around, so data was hard to find. So you guess what changed, right? Computers became very common in the newsroom, and tools became easier and easier to use. For example, Microsoft Excel, it's friendly user. So journalists started to get into Microsoft Excel, and then like, okay, so we might need something extra for this, and try. Okay, I'll try coding, even if I'm not sure if I can code. And probably the most important step that changed everything is that data became very common, and especially public data, because this trend of openness across the government, and that the government should publish data and should be easily assessed online, started to become a thing. And so journalists started to realize that they needed some way to get something from it. And obviously now, like I could call it like a second phase, we have these massive leaks. You probably heard about WikiLeaks or Pandora Papers, for example, where it was a lot of data. So now, and we had the computers to actually analyze that data. So again, what is data journalism? I could say that data journalism is basically when you combine the traditional news for news and this way that, or these techniques of storytelling that we have in journalism, with all the other stuff that people on the data science field do, and people on the statistics side of the world do. So we basically try to combine these two things. This is basically the data journalism workflow, and you will probably realize that it's very similar to your. I'm guessing that most of you are data scientists. So it's very similar to what you do on your daily life. So basically the first thing is that we have this thing that we want to talk about. So maybe it was a leak, maybe we have this idea or this hunch about the world that we want to try to figure out. So the next step is, where can I find data? And obviously comes the third step that we all love, that is cleaning data. And then, like I always say that my job is to interview databases. And so basically I state some questions that I want to ask that database. And as always, when I'm interviewing someone, new questions come up after they reply. So that's how the data analysis process works also. So after that interview from the database, we start to make some calls, talk to someone that has been studying that for a long time. And maybe sometimes we need to start again because that person says, look, you have no story there. It's absolutely normal that that number goes up every year and you are just not seeing the bigger picture. And probably not the last sometimes is the one that takes the most of takes all your energy, is to think how you can tell that story. And data journalism also revolutionized that, because you, especially when you apply to the web, because you start to have one medium where you can, for example, give us some kind of a personalized experience to the reader, because you have a lot of data, and you can allow the reader to explore that data. So it's also, you can also try to think, okay, how can I do something out of the box, something that is not a simple text and photo that you see on the newspaper every day. So I wanted to also give you one example, and I only could bring one example because I don't have a lot of time, but I think it's an example that helps you understand a little bit what I do. In 2020, we know that something happened, and the world changed, and all those wishes that you already heard about. But a few months after the first impact of COVID, and there was a lot of data on it, I started to wonder, okay, so we are spending a lot of money, a lot of public money to fight this pandemic. But also another thing, I don't want to give you a talk about public tenders and public and how that works, but there are very rigid rules on it. But all the governments across Europe said, okay, so there's no time to these public tenders rules and all those things. We need to get masks. We need to get, you can imagine all the the things that we needed to fight COVID. So I started wondering, okay, but how much is being spent? Who's getting the most out of this very big amount of money? And I was asking that, but also a lot of other journalists across Europe were also thinking about that. So we partnered with OCCRP and the consortium of journalists that were also asking that question. We knew that we had data because basically the Portuguese government published this decree where they said, don't worry about these public tenders rules, like you need to get masks, you need to get other materials to fight COVID, so don't worry about it. But because they knew that, they said, okay, sure, but we will publish all the data. Even the contracts that didn't need to be public, because there's an amount that doesn't need to, €3 for a mask, they decided, okay, we will publish it. So we had an Excel file that was being published on dados.gov.pt with legally all the contracts to fight COVID. But I realized that data was missing because simply some hospitals, some people were not really worried about saying this public tender is under this thing, this law. So I knew that it was not a lot on that Excel, and there were probably much more data on it. And I knew that all the public contracts need to be published on BAS. I don't know if you know BAS, but BAS is a website that has basically all the public contracts in Portugal. So how could I get all that extra data that I was needing? So I did a scraper. I started with because BAS is based on search. So I built a database with 30 keywords, around 30 keywords with the basic ones: COVID, coronavirus, masks, FP2, those things that you can remember immediately. But I wasn't sure I was getting all of it, and I was always realizing that something was missing. So I ended up joining that database with the other database, see the term frequency on the description, and see if there was something there that I was missing out. And I ended up with 98 words connected with COVID contracts. So I rerun again and again and again the scraper, always running to get all those public contracts. And after cleaning all the false positives, and there was a lot of false positives, I ended up with this number of contracts. So sure, I had data, but it was a lot of data, and especially data that I needed to read the contracts. And we, on this consortium of journalists, we came up with the idea that we wanted to label all these contracts into kinds of contracts. So imagine if it was for construction, because there was a lot of things being built to prevent people to be all together. If it was for masks, I don't remember the number of categories, but it was, I think it was around 30 categories of products. So I had a classification problem, and also one thing is that because, and I was really, we always thought the same bad things about our country, but I was really surprised because on all these European countries, we had Russia with being the one with more public contracts published, but it's Russia, it's a lot, and then it was Portugal. All other journalists across Europe, they had like, some had 20 contracts, not a lot. And it was easy for them to classify all of them, but I had that number of contracts. So as all data scientists or data focused people, I turned into machine learning. I had this intern that was at Public at the time, Mara, and she was helping me reading all the contracts and classifying them, and we did a lot of them. But then Mara, her internship ended up, and I was alone, and I needed to read all the other contracts. So I turned into a machine learning model, and I built Mara, the COVID tenders classifier that used Mara work to do that classification. It was not like a very good machine learning model, but I was only like, I just needed, it was easier for me to change the the contracts that were not on the right label rather than going all of and having to classify all of them. That made front page at Publico, and all the page is something very important for a journalist to have the first page and so much space on the front page. But I also knew, and we had a lot of pages inside of the newspaper with all the conclusions, but I also knew that that database was really important to be explored, because I had a lot of fun exploring it myself. I wanted to know, for example, how much my municipality was how much it was spending to fight COVID. I wanted to see how much was being spent in masks, how the amount spent in masks have been across time. So I thought, I need to publish this database, but my readers don't want to go through an Excel file to look at that, and most of them don't have the skills to use that. So we built this portal, this what in data journalism we call these kind of things news applications. It's basically, it's news, but it's also an application where we allow people to search for the contract, to see all the categories. I can show it to you later. So I think this work sums up a little bit what I do. Basically, it's journalism, and I obviously always identify myself as a journalist, because I think like I have a lot of commitment to this profession. But when you have the data part of it, it means that you can write new stories and do a lot of cool stuff. So I don't know if you have questions for me. I don't know if you were able to understand a little bit what is data journalism. I could have other examples, but I think this one kind of sums up a little bit what I do.